Hey, secret friends, welcome back to the Spotlight. This is our show where we, of course, talk to the folks that make the stuff we love, the creatives. And I am with Mr. Joe Rubinstein today. Joe, good evening to you. How are you?
Hello. Are you secret to each other? Like you don't
I
know,
don't
like a
think so.
secret cell?
Uh,
Yeah.
kind of, sorta. Back when I
All right.
started this concept with a buddy of mine long ago, it was in the '90s when comic book loving people were nerds and not accepted, and now it's kind of the other way around. But I'm too deep into the branding to change it.
Oh, I'm
But
I'm I'm sure when you bring girls home and they see those action figures behind you, it just they just melt
my
into your arms.
my wife
Yeah.
helped me set this all up, so I'm doing all
Well,
right, but that's a very
well,
fair
well.
point.
Then she is the perfect woman. Okay.
There's no doubt about it. Well, Joe, it's wonderful to have you on board. Tell me about, first and foremost, how did you get started in the business? How did you get rolling in, the comic book
Oh,
world?
we're going that far back. All
Oh,
right.
sure,
All
why
right. All
not?
right.
With the Wayback
All right.
Machine.
Okay. In the previous century, shortly
The
after having
1900s.
right, shortly after discovering gravity, because that changed everything. Now we could sit down.
Right.
It was great.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
okay, so I came to America from Israel when I was 5 years old. My older cousin had Superman family books, and I must have become enthralled by the pictures and the colors and all that. And since I couldn't read the language or speak the language, that was my thing. Um, and like so many little kids, I got lined paper and crayons and did my own comic books. And I lived in New York City, so I went to the Art Students League of New York when I was 11. By the time I was 13, I ran into Neil Adams at my first comic book convention. I asked him if he needed somebody to help at the studio doing errands and crap like that, there was crap like that. Um, and then by the time I was 15, I was the art assistant to people like Dick Giordano and Russ Heath and Wally Wood. By the time I was 17, I got my first job at DC Comics. And then at 19, I got my first job at Marvel Comics, which was the Avengers 2-in-1 annuals that became the basis for the last Avengers movies.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it seemed like a long time, but it was basically 6 years from Art Students League to my first DC job.
My goodness. One of the biggest things that I loved, I'm an '80s kid. I was born in the '70s, grew up in the '80s. So when I was 10, 11 years old, I really discovered Marvel Comics like fully fleshed, but it was right at the time that the official Marvel handbook was launching into the deluxe edition. And
Right.
I read that thing backwards and forwards daily. It was like, I was a short, chubby kid who loved comic books. So you do the math. But you were a huge part of that.
I
So
am.
yeah, tell me
I,
about that book. I've always loved to hear a little background about
I was
the
I was
whole
surprised.
concept of that.
I was surprised anybody read it. In all honesty, I didn't
Well, I
know it
was
would be. Like I suppose that. I mean, I picked up my parents were wonderful enough to get the Encyclopedia Britannica for our home, so I did read everything I could out of that about art and drawing.
mhm.
But generally speaking, most people I don't think sit down and read the encyclopedia. So when we put out the Marvel Handbook, I didn't think anybody would read it. It was just our excuse for, well, what it was is I'm trying to stabilize this imagery, so I'm sorry if I'm like making
You're
stuff
doing just
crazy
fine.
here.
Don't even worry about it.
Um, so Mark Grunwald, who desperately loved comic books, his whole life was comic books. He
Huge,
wanted,
huge, huge fan.
yeah, he wanted to stabilize the universe, which God knows that sounds easy. Um,
Mhm,
And they said, so we're going to put out this encyclopedia, but we're going to get the public to pay for it instead of just do it in house. So
mhm.
that's why I thought it wouldn't sell because I didn't think it would have that much of appeal. And I've been totally wrong so many times in my life. I'll give you a long list later. Um, oh, that's funny. See how wrong I was the way I set this up. So,
Which is
um,
no big deal for anybody who's listening to this on just
right,
audio, but
all
they'd
right.
be like, "What's
So,
going on?" Take them to
right,
our YouTube channel.
right. So believe it or not, I accidentally gave myself this job. Um, And I didn't remember this till I read my own interview because I fascinate me. So I, we are the first generation, more or less, that can actually see our memories and realize how wrong they were. Like you can watch a videotape or a TV show which has this incredibly dramatic line in it, and 6 months later you're watching it again, and it's like, that was it. And so you can't trust like eyewitnesses because they know nothing.
Right.
So there was this magazine called the Comic Scene, and Bob Greenberger was the editor, and I kept bugging him to do a piece about inkers because nobody knew what they did anyway. It's the colors, right? The colors. Oh wait, no, you trace, right? Um, and so he put together this forum with Jansen, Tom Palmer, Bob Layton, and me, and I think Dennis Cowan wandered in at some point. And what they did was they had a drawing by Mike Zeck of the Hulk, and then they had the four of us ink it, and then they were all side by side so people could readily compare what an inker does. So Mark Grunwald saw this and thought that mine was truest to the intention of what had been drawn. So he came to me and he said, "We're doing this encyclopedia, and I want you to ink these three figures." And I think they were two Ron Wilsons and a Brian Postman, but I'm not sure. And I inked them and I brought them back, and he went, "Oh, okay. So how many you want to do?" I went, "All of them. Why would I say anything else?" And so I did. About 99.9% of all 20 years worth I was drawn till the last editor decided to give some of them to the penciler to ink because of schedules, which really, really pissed me off.
Mm.
Um, so one way or another, I inked. I I made this joke once, and people keep repeating it. It's like I have the Guinness World Record for having inked the most pencilers and the most characters, which, if it existed, I do, but it doesn't exist. S- So so one day I decided I'll try to make a legitimate person of myself. What's the term when you're unmarried and then you're married? It's make like uh what meaning
uh,
like they're living in sin and now they're married, so now they are
yeah, it's a conversion of some kind, like,
now legal unhonest. Decided to make
right, making an honest man of
an
yourself.
honest person of myself.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
so
yeah.
so I wrote Guinness and I said, "Hey, listen, I'm this comic book guy and I've done all this stuff. Maybe you want to include me in your book." And they said, "No, we're busy counting how many nickels can go up a guy's nose." So so that was
That
that. But I've done somewhere between 425 and 400 different pencilers, and literally every single character Marvel ever did up until like 1990. I guess there's new ones.
mhm.
And
That's
then
good.
I worked on Superman and Batman, Legion of Superheroes, Justice League of America, Wonder Woman. So I've done a whole bunch of those guys too. And it was the greatest gig an inker ever did because it was easy. It was one figure, sometimes an additional panel, bunch of heads. Um,
Yeah.
and then to make it more interesting for me, I made a point of soliciting all kinds of pencilers I always wanted to work with, people who never, ever, ever let anyone else ink their work, like Joe Kubert, John Bolton, John Severin. You know, so yeah, it was the best job an inker ever had.
Yeah. So, it's funny because my next question kinda tilts into what you were just talking about, what Guinness said, and I don't know that it's actually true, but you feel, I mean, 425 artists is an insane number. Tell me, I was like this, tell me a highlight or maybe even a low light of that resume. What's a job that you said, "Oh my god, we just blew this one away," or, "Oh my god, this was the absolute worst and most boring," or, "Everything went
You
wrong,"
mean
or
you mean not in relationship to Marvel Universe Handbook, just in general?
yeah, just in general.
Well, I
Yeah, talk
mean,
to me about, as they say, talk to me about your life,
yeah.
like
Well,
Oprah would say.
look, it, it's one thing to do my more or less professional speed is about 2 pages a day. But if they give you 9 pages on Friday and can you have them back on Monday, then
Mm,
that's a lot of work. And then I did this annual, I don't even, maybe it was X Factor. It was all the X Factor guys, which was like the X-Men
right.
and the Inhumans and Power Pack,
Oh my
you know?
god.
So when you're doing Spider-Man with the black costume,
Oh,
that
my
goes pretty
favorite.
fast.
Yeah.
But when you're doing three groups meeting and there have to be 12 characters in every panel, and then I did the Infinity Gauntlet, which George Perez desperately loved to do lots and lots and lots of characters and lots of
Oh, yeah.
detail.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I I don't particularly like doing little figures, and if I don't like doing mechanical stuff. So who do I hate? Galactus, War Machine, Jack of Hearts. You know, who do I like doing? The Hulk because he's naked. The 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 Silver Surfer because he's even more naked.
Right, and
So
shiny.
so it's kind of a balance between I get to do the Silver Surfer next to that fucking Hulk, Galactus guy. You know, and the thing is, Jack Kirby, arguably the greatest comic book artist who ever lived, um, he would draw a new character in, let's say, the middle of a story, and then he'd never draw him the same way again the rest of the story because he never paid attention, didn't look at what he did before. But we had to, and why Galactus had to have a skirt and a thing going up and the antlers and the cross and the, you know, it's and I mean and God knows Adam Warlock is done by Starlin was a tremendous pain in the ass until Jim finally got around to giving him that black bodysuit. Thank you,
Yeah,
Jim.
yeah.
Um, and there it's kind of a mixed bag. Um, Sometimes you're given a job that's really bad and you have to fix it, and it seems easy because all you're doing is fixing, and people think, well, that's what it looked like. But there was a lot of shoving and moving and things like that. Um, I would much look. Who do I prefer to ink? The real draftsman, the superior artists, the John Buscema and Gene Colan and Kurt Swan. You know, um, So people like that, I have to rise to the occasion, and I'm fine with that, you know. And you get somebody crappy, and it's like it's boring. And the thing with thinking is it's boring. It's it's only black, and you're going over somebody else's work, and it's like, sure. Let me explain you something, Lucy. Okay.
Please.
Um, for those people who don't quite understand what inking is all about, and why should you? Um, a composer is put in front of a blank piece of paper and they create a piece of music that never existed before. And then they hand it to a musician and says, "Here's my baby, don't hurt it." And then the musician or the conductor has to decide, is it a trombone, a piccolo, or a guitar? And even though it's exactly the same notes and exactly the same sequence, depending upon what instrument you pick up will change it completely. So let's say the guy says, "All right, we need this in guitar." This is fine. But is it classical, flamenco, jazz, whatever, right? So even within that, there's all kinds of room for variation, modification, and ruination. So a penciler gets a blank piece of paper in front of them and creates something that never existed before and hands it to me and says, "Here, don't hurt my baby." And I say, "Okay, is this a brush job or a pen job?" "All right, it's a pen job." "All right, but is it a soft pen where I can do lots of arabesques, or is it a hard pen where I do kinetic energy?" So again, I can totally alter the feeling of what's going on. So when you've got the job in front of you, certainly the penciler deserves a great deal of credit for it. But if the job looks good, thank the inker for not screwing it up. And possibly, in the case of somebody, great like Dick Giordano, improving upon it. So
Yeah.
so the thing is, somebody who is a genius like Alfredo Alcala, Tony DeZuniga, um, they did everything the same way all the time. You always knew an Alfredo Alcala. There was no variation. It was brilliant, but you didn't necessarily get who you started with. And if you and I was and this came from Dick because Dick was my mentor. Um, Dick would not ink Mike Sikowski on the Wonder Woman the way he did Neil Adams on something else, on Green Lantern. He wouldn't ink Carmen Infantino the way he would Kurt Swan. So to make it interesting for myself, I try to accommodate what's in front of me. I try to say, all right, what does this person want that I need to follow? What do I adhere to? What is the basis for this person's stuff? Like for instance, I inked Eric Larson, and Eric is very stylized, very comic book.
Yeah. Yeah,
Nothing
we've had him on the show.
right, right.
Interesting guy.
Well, looking at his head, he's very stylized and very comic book. Uh, okay. So um I'm not going to ink Kurt Swan like Eric Larson. So I followed Eric Larson as closely as I could. And then it was a three-part Spider-Man Wolverine thing. And when they put it
Mhm.
all together, they left my credits off of it. And I said, why? And they said, we didn't know you inked it. We thought it was Eric. So that's my thing. I want to get lost in the person's style, but hopefully, the old-fashioned term is embellisher. Um,
Yeah. Right.
hopefully I will give it that little extra, like polish. Like for instance, Kevin McGuire is a very, very good draftsman. His stuff is absolutely totally tight. But when I ink it, I give a little flourish to the hair. I give a
Okay.
little more weight to the hips on a girl, something like that. So
Mhm.
I want you to just look and says, that's a good Kevin Nolan job. Good, because I kept it a good Kevin Nolan job and maybe added another 5-10%.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it. Um, Wolverine's big limited series in the early 1980s.
Yes.
I haven't read that one in forever, but it's beyond iconics, particularly, and I see it on your website as well, that first issue, the smiling with the pop claws like that. Tell me
Hmm.
about that. I mean, and again, I'm a Spider-Man guy. So that was the big focus of always what I read, but and I dabbled in the X-Men, but
Right.
Wolverine is one of
Right.
the most incredible characters Marvel ever created. Tell me about that series.
Well, Frank Miller and I were friends. He was a starving kid from Vermont, and we were friends and we were buddies. And I think that's why I worked on the first cover Frank did for Daredevil, I think 156, because he could
Mhm,
trust
mhm.
me. Even though Jansen was assigned the insides, I don't know that he knew that who would be the cover artist, so I did it. So Frank trusted me. So we were flying home from San Diego Con together, and I just bought a big stack of Joe Kubert comic books. And Jack Kirby's the greatest comic artist that ever lived, and Joe Kubert takes my breath away. You open up a two-page spread of Tarzan fighting a gorilla, and the fur's flying, and the muscles are, I just love Kubert. So I showed it to Frank, and Frank absorbed these things. So if you look at the Wolverine miniseries, it kind of has a Joe Kubert layout to what the
Mhm.
page structure is all about. Matter of fact, I think it's issue 3, maybe 2, where it ends with a full splash of Wolverine looking up, and he's got a furry collar on him. And
Mhm.
I went, okay, this is my enemy ace moment. So I did the thing as best I could, and it still looks like a third-rate Joe Kubert, but but it's still trying for that flavor, right?
Yeah.
So I think Frank tried to get Kubert into it and me to go along with it. And Frank walked up to me. In the old days, there was no FedEx, there was no internet. You had to more or less live in the New York City tri-state area because you had to come in and
Right.
deliver your stuff.
Right.
Except the Filipinos who they'd work on the cheapest possible, thinnest, cheapest possible paper, roll it into the tightest tube, and then mail it from the Philippines. And it's, and I can't believe every one of those jobs actually showed up. There's got to be something
Right.
that was lost. Anyway,
That's crazy.
so I'm at Marvel's offices, and Frank walks up to me and says, "Hey, we're doing this Wolverine miniseries. You want to do it?" I go, "Yeah." Who knew? Who knew it had legs?
Yeah.
Who knew it would pay my bills for the next 43 years? You know, I mean, if I go to a party and somebody says, "Oh, you're comic book artist. What do you do?" And says, "Oh, I do Brother Power the Geek." They go, "Uh-huh. What? Huh? No, I do the Inferior Five." Oh, that's nice. It's just I I do Wolverine and Thanos. Oh, well.
That
Oh,
that's a thing
hey.
I've heard of.
Yeah, yeah, right. Um, so I mean, the truth is, look, you go up to somebody, if anybody's still alive, from Gone with the Wind, or there's still a couple of people alive from Godfather, and you say, "What was it like?" And they go, "It's a job. We did it. We did our job. We had lunch. We went home. We came back. We did our, you know." It's
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that anybody goes, "This this could be iconic," or
Mhm.
you do your job, and so I did the best I could, because I spend the majority of my life alone in this room, and when I'm done, I'd like something to point to and not be ashamed that I did that. And
Right.
you want somebody to hire you again.
Right.
So, but the truth is that I was ashamed of my work on that for about 25 years, because
Why?
because Frank was being inked by Klaus. Klaus was taught by Dick Giordano. Klaus was Dick's assistant just before I was.
Mm.
Consequently, we've never gotten along.
You
Whole
and
o-
Klaus?
whole other story.
Yeah, okay.
Klaus has been my favorite inker for 40
Yeah,
years, but
yeah.
we don't have lunch.
Oh,
Um, so
I I think I met him at a show here in Michigan,
right.
last fall. Seemed like a
Well,
nice enough guy, but we
well,
talked a few
the common
seconds.
denominator is you ink comic books, all your hair falls out.
Oh,
But anyway, um,
I didn't know that.
oh, so
I did
right.
I
So
understand.
Klaus was inking Frank's pencils on Daredevil, and I thought they were perfect. I thought they were great. Couldn't wait for every issue to come out and read it, and I'd read it first, and then I'd go back and I'd look at it, because if I looked at it while I read it, I would lose the story, and I'd look at all the
Yeah.
great stuff what Klaus was doing. So Frank was giving Klaus full pencils. He was giving me layouts, which means there's a lot more ambiguity to it. Blacks aren't necessarily indicated. Lots of decisions have to be made by me that Frank left out, that he gave to Klaus. So the old joke was, just when you think it was safe to answer the phone, it was Rubinstein again. Says, "Frank, what did you want in panel 6? What does that mean? Is that shape?" So
Right.
so because I got layouts and Klaus got pencils, they don't look a thing alike. So I felt I had failed because it didn't look like Daredevil. And people said nice things to me, and I said thank you, because that's what you're supposed to do. Um, and then about 25 years later, I looked at it and went, "Oh, this isn't so bad." So so I accepted it for what it was. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Fantastic. Thanks for coming on. Man, what are you working on right now? I see, you're on the concert, and I see you're at a show with Bob McLeod, coming up in the near future. I talked to him just earlier this week. Super nice
Yeah, I think
guy.
it's this weekend in Raleigh, I think.
Oh, that's awesome.
Or maybe not. I don't know. I get confused.
Well, let him know I said hello. Yeah,
Uh,
his, because
right.
he'll be on our show coming up soon, just
Right.
like you will be. But
The
yeah, what else you working on?
Nothing. The companies don't know I'm alive. I haven't
Oh,
had
no.
a job for Marvel or DC. Well, this is a weird one. Um, the very last issue of Swamp Thing, which was like 50 years ago, I did like the reboot where Swamp Thing was his daughter or something. But
Mhm.
the last issue of that one never got finished because the book got canceled. And
Oh,
it
no.
was drawn by Ernie Chan and finished up by Fred Carrillo. And now they're putting an omnibus together, I guess, of Swamp Thing, and they asked me to finish up the lost 8 pages.
Oh, there you go.
So 50 years later. Um,
Well, hey,
but
better late than never,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But look, if your millions of viewers want to start a letter writing campaign and say, why don't we have more classic inking by Joe Rubinstein on our books? I wouldn't mind being a comic book artist to get. I mean, what I do primarily are commissions. I'm a
Mhm.
portrait painter. I do paintings of comic book
Fantastic.
characters and regular people, and I've got work to do, thank God.
Yeah,
But
right.
it would be nice to say, oh yeah, I do comic books. So
We will get the word out.
matter of fact, I was like, it's been recorded. I've done like 13,500 pages. I'm like the seventh or
Wow.
eighth most prolific inker who ever lived. Well, I haven't worked in about 25 years. I mean,
Well
2001, the implosion happened, and I haven't done much of anything uh, an issue here, 4 issues there, graphic novel. But really,
Yeah.
if I had been the last 5 years, I probably would be the most prolific inker who ever lived. But yeah, I
Well,
saw, I'd like to do comics again if
yeah.
Marvel and DC would like to call.
I hear you. Well, we will get the word out to the best of our ability. But man, thanks for being here.
Okay.
This has been absolutely fantastic.
If anybody wants to contact me for commissions or signings or something, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram,
Right.
I'm wherever you want me
Yeah.
to be. I'm like Tom Joad. I'll be
I love
there.
it. I
Okay.
love it, and I got your links in the show notes as well,
Oh, okay,
so
thanks.
people can reach out to you. But yeah, thanks for being here, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you're on our Patreon, you get this a week early. If you're on our free feeds, visit our Patreon and get this a week early, or see us on YouTube, and you can hear these great, wonderful interviews like my chat with Joe Rubinstein. Thank you so much for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, take care.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and podcast services around the galaxy, as well as video on our YouTube channel. You can support Secret Friends Unite by becoming a Patreon member, get bonus programs and more over at patreon.com/secretfriendsunite. Join our Discord community for even more discussions on all things geek. For all the latest updates on Secret Friends Unite, make sure to follow us on threads at secret.friends.unite and visit secretfriendsunite.com. Find our merchandise at TeePublic and Redbubble. Thanks for listening, and may the Force live long and prosper.